on. But wanted to first off thank you all for taking some time on this snowy Monday evening to spend some time talking about the city of Elyria. If you don't know, I'm Mayor Frank Whitfield, and I'm looking forward to talking with you all tonight. I have some folks from the city and from the community here to speak with you as well, give you some updates. But overall, just really wanted to spend some time with you. In a traditional sense, we would have had you come up to City Hall or meet us at a rec center and had the chance to kind of talk with you and hear what your concerns are, what your aspirations are for the city, where you feel we're meeting the mark, where we're missing the mark, and really just get that feedback from you all, not only from myself, but to provide that feedback to our staff as well, so that they can be able to hear the feedback directly from you on what you're hoping to see. So that's the intent of this tonight, is really to have a conversation. And that's why we wanted to, structure this as a Zoom. If the purpose was to just do a presentation, I would have just posted a video of me talking at you. So I'm hoping that you're ready to have a conversation tonight, because that's the purpose of tonight, is to really have a conversation and for me to react and respond, and the staff to react and respond to what you would like. I think in the main room, they shared kind of the house rules with you all. They will be muting and helping to keep the meeting orderly. I hope they shared with you how to raise your hand if you're on the phone, hitting *9. Is that a baby right there? Oh my goodness. Oh, that's too cute. I got distracted, sorry. Oh my God. Oh, that's somebody's background. Oh man, you tease me. All right. So, sorry, get back focused. So, so if you want to raise your hand, hit *9, or if you're on your computer, you can click raise hand and we'll call on you for questions. But right now, I wanted to give some time for our Safety Service Director, Kevin Brubaker, to kind of share some updates with you about the snowstorm and the parking ban. So, Director Brubaker, could you give some updates to the city around the snowstorm?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see some familiar faces on there. I see some names on there that I've been communicating with today, and actually invited to the town hall meeting because of our conversations regarding the snow. But there's three areas I want to briefly discuss with you tonight, and that's the parking ban, our snow policy, and then what we're doing during this snow event that we're about, or actually we are receiving right now. In the past, it's always been the policy of the city of Elyria that we did not plow secondaries until the snow exceeded 4 inches in a single event. So we may get 4 inches over 3 or 4 days, but in a single event, we did not send trucks out. That was a multitude of reasons. That was money, that was equipment. And the mayor and I and the street department met this past week, and we decided to change that policy a little bit internally. We are going to start sending trucks out at a smaller amount. Initially, we're looking at 3 inches or less, but we will be making that decision each snowfall moving forward on if we need to send them out sooner than 3 inches. Also, our policy dictates that we only do the primaries, which are main routes, school bus routes, streets that lead directly to schools, our main highways, bridges, hills. Those areas get plowed and salted first, and we try to keep those clear for obvious reasons of traffic flow. And then our event is to get to the secondary sometime after the snow event stops. In a big event, it'll take us anywhere from 12 to 14 to 18 hours to clear the entire city, depending on the number of trucks we're able to put out in the field. And again, we're looking at starting these secondaries much sooner. We're looking at when the snow is coming in, when it's leaving, to make the determination at what time can we effectively put trucks out on our secondary so that they can do the most benefit to our residents in a shorter amount of period of time. Because you as residents passed issue 6 twice now, that over the last 6 or 7 years, that's allowed the city to purchase brand new pickup trucks with brand new plows on them. And that's afforded the city the opportunity to put newer trucks on the road, which allows us to more efficiently clear the secondary streets with less breakdowns and our older trucks falling apart. So because of issue 6 passing due to the resident support, that's allowed us to have that capability. And now we're able to more efficiently put trucks out on the road with more trucks so that we can do those secondaries. As in respect to the snow event that we're having, one of the things that just came out before this call is we were notified that Republic is not going to be running their trash routes tomorrow. I did talk to our sanitation supervisor, Mr. I. The city is going to be running our trucks tomorrow We're already a day behind due to the holiday today. So trash pickup will commence tomorrow morning. We will be following that 1-day delay. So if your pickup was today, your pickup will start tomorrow. How we're able to do that with the large amount of snowfall is I've coordinated with our street department, and we're actually going to have, earlier today, we put out plows into our secondary starting at about 11 o'clock this morning. We only had anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches of snow, but the mayor and I thought it was prudent that we put trucks out earlier to clear up some of the stuff that's already fallen, try to scrape the roads for what's already down in preparation of making it easier on our drivers when the big snowfall event happens, which is happening right now. We are expecting anywhere, I talked to Mr. Kelly from Emergency Management, anywhere from 8 to 10, 12 inches of snow in our area. It could be higher, it could be lower. So that's our big trucks that do the mains and salt and plow. They're going to be out all night. They came in at 4 a.m. We're switching drivers out throughout the evening. They will be out and about through this entire event. They probably will not come off the road until this time tomorrow, at least on the main routes. Working with the street department and sanitation department, we will be putting out secondary trucks tomorrow morning starting at 3 a.m. So we are anticipating the snowfall stopping between 4 and 5, but we're going to put them out earlier. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, we already have 27 trucks ready to roll to put into the secondaries. What we've decided to do to help our sanitation trucks, Tuesdays, tomorrow's route, which is technically Mondays, we're actually going to have those snowplow trucks working in the area that the garbage trucks will be visiting tomorrow, which is everything west of West River, Murray Ridge, West Ridge, anything basically on the west side of town. First thing tomorrow morning, we're going to have a multitude of trucks in those areas to clear those streets so the garbage trucks can make their routes. And then as they start to branch out, they will be doing the balance of the city. The amount of snow that we're anticipating, as I said, is quite a lot. So I do anticipate it being the better part of tomorrow into tomorrow evening before we get to all the secondaries. So we are asking folks to be patient. We do have a snow parking ban that we put in place as of noon today, and it will run until noon Wednesday. Unfortunately, I can't give you all the streets, but I know the mayor has posted that. The Chronicle has posted that. Any street that is on that list, we're asking you to, we're enforcing you to not park on those streets so that we have the ability to clear those routes with our big trucks and our little trucks. If we have to, we will enforce that with the Elyria Police Department by way of towing them. I know the police department will make attempt to notify the owners if they can to get them to move. Otherwise, those vehicles will be towed. I've already spoken to our police department in regards to that. So that's kind of what our policy was, what we're working at moving forward. We have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of things to evaluate moving forward, but we want to make sure that we get trucks out in the neighborhoods, making sure these streets are plowed so that our folks that need to get out can get out. And with that, Mayor, hopefully I answered everything you asked me to prepare.
No, thank you, Director Brubaker. Any questions from any of the residents around the parking ban, the snowfall? Any comments, questions from any of the residents? Yeah, yes, I see a hand went up. Mr. Martinez, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce a couple of your trucks went down our street, and it is good that you're going down now because if you didn't get that snow, there would be a lot of ice underneath, and that makes things worse.
Yep.
That all is just loaded with ice, so it's good you cleared out because that first layer is nice and soft. Who knows what's going to happen after the next snow? That's very good thinking on your part.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will throw away, and I get this question a lot, Mayor, and I apologize I didn't bring this up about salting secondaries. I just call it what it is. Cost efficient wise, it's not efficient, particularly in this cold weather that we've had over the last week. Trying to salt secondaries would be almost fruitless because the salt is not going to work in this very, very cold weather. Although earlier this week we did send trucks out to salt some of the side street intersections to keep people from sliding through. But when people ask, why don't we salt secondaries? That's the reason why. Salt is very expensive and efficient wise. particularly in this cold, it just doesn't work. But thank you, Mr. Martinez, for that comment.
And I want to give a special thank you to, not only the street team and getting out there at 3 o'clock in the morning out there plowing roads, but all the other departments that helped chip in to help make that happen. So I just want to give them a special shout out, because I know it's probably not easy waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, or waking up before 3, being at work by 3, plowing all through the morning, and then how do you spend the rest of your day when you've been up all night? So just definitely want to give them a shout out and hope that you all send some love to them as well. With that being said, I'm going to shift over to discuss the other elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. And as you know, we've been battling this virus for now over a year here in the States. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I've asked the health commissioner to come on today and share an update with you all where we are in terms of vaccination and what's our plan for mass vaccination so that we can get back to normal. So Commissioner Covell, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple things, some good news. As many of you may know already, we have now in Lorain County and in Ohio, we have surpassed, more people have been vaccinated than people have been confirmed with the illness. So that's a great thing. And it just shows you that there really is a light at the end of the tunnel. And so our case count here in Lorain County continues to go down and down and down. I will say that there's a prediction out there, and the modeling has been pretty good on these, that another wave will probably come the end of March or beginning of April. And by then we want to get enough folks who are sensitive, have worse health outcomes vaccinated, 65 and over, long-term cares, all these other folks, so that if the wave does come, it doesn't have as drastic of an impact. And so we're making a lot of progress on that way. So I want to talk a little bit about our pod structure. Matter of fact, speaking of the snow, we had a second dose pod scheduled for tomorrow. And so my team actually worked this morning to reschedule that for Wednesday because, again, of the snow, we didn't want 80-plus-year-old folks trying to make their way to their second dose. And so those 600 and something people will be coming on Wednesday instead. So let me talk a little bit about the pod structure. So we've had about 20 pods, points of distributions. Most of those do about 1,000 in about a 4 or 5 hour period. Drive-throughs do more like 500, so they're a little less efficient, but people get to stay in their car, and that's important for older adults. And so we've done pretty well. We've had 3 pods that didn't go as well as we wanted. And there's 2 combinations that really affect the pods. And so one is people tend to put it on Facebook if they get an invitation. So please, if you're one of the people who gets an invitation, all residents out there, please do not put it on Facebook. That invitation is for you, and we ask you to come at a certain particular time. And so what's happened is whenever that has gotten shared, we've had 3 of them that got a little out of control. People came hours and hours early, and it just clogs up the system. Now, one of the problems with that, people have asked me, why don't you turn people away? Well, once you get in our system, once we vaccinate you, then I know exactly who's coming for the second dose. And then it's very easy to have a list there and check those off and say, no, this is a second dose clinic for these folks. But when it's first dose, there are so many thousands of people that want this that we end up, they sign up on our site, they sign up on multiple different sites. And then wherever they get it first, that's where they go. And so they may be already at Drug Mart. So we end up inviting more people than actually we have vaccine for. But we know exactly where that balance is, and we invite them for certain time frames so that we can handle them. So anyway, but sometimes people may not come with their paperwork. There are a lot of older adults that struggle with the computer. And so it's difficult for us to verify that that person didn't just leave their paperwork at home, and to kick out someone who is 85 years old, who doesn't have their paperwork with them, it's just unrealistic. When I'm vaccinating 1,000 people, if they fit into the category, whether they're a medical worker or they're an older adult, I really do need to vaccinate them. And so that's really difficult to do. Again, it's easier if you're in our system where we vaccinated you the first time, then it's pretty easy to do on a second dose. So that's kind of the way it is. The other thing I wanted to address too, people have asked, why don't you have these more specific appointments like Drug Mart does or Giant Eagle? Well, Drug Mart and Giant Eagle are doing about 100 per week. That's how many they can do by that appointment, those strict appointments. If we did strict appointments, we could maybe do 200 a week. We do 2,000 a week right now. So it would take 10 weeks to do as many as we do currently in this pod system. So I guess here's what I would suggest for folks. If you really can't stand in line for 45 minutes, or because that's about, if you come at the regular time and our pod is working well, it's somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour to get through the system. If that's really not something that you or your parents can do, that's where you really want to rely on Drug Mart and Giant Eagle and other folks who give you that opportunity to get there. And it may be a couple weeks before you get in, but again, it would be a more comfortable setting for you. If, on the other hand, you are ambulatory and could make it through and go for an hour, then again, that's where we come in, because you can get a little quicker. And so again, that's why the governor has decided to have multiple partners so that it can fit multiple people and whatever your particular scenario really calls for. So that's what's going on right now with older adults, and we're now at 65 and over. So anybody 65 and over, and there's about 50,000 of those folks between them and 1A, the medical workers. There's about 50,000 in Lorain County, and so we're moving through those groups, and we should be through those groups. I would assume if vaccine continues to come in, we should be through those groups here sometime in March. Through February here, and then into March a little ways, and we should be moving forward. The other thing is, another light at the end of the tunnel, Johnson & Johnson looks like it's probably going to get approved in the next couple of weeks, and that's a single dose vaccine. That's an important piece, because when it comes to public health, if I only have to vaccinate you one time, it really does make it a lot easier to, again, have these mass clinics and get a lot of people vaccinated. So again, those are all good. That's all good news. I think at the beginning, and maybe the last time I was on a call with you, Mayor, we talked a little bit about what my crystal ball said. And at that time I said, sometime between January and April, we're going to get all of the people who are 65 and over and underlying conditions and medical workers, we're going to get them all vaccinated. And then from April till June is when we'll open it up to other folks. Now, to let you know, I'm a 56-year-old, relatively healthy guy, I'd like to still think. And so I'm not eligible to get vaccinated yet. And so my turn's going to be in April, May, and June, and as we move through. I think it's important for residents to understand. We want to get the people who really have the worst health outcomes vaccinated first, because again, the key is when the next wave does hit, we don't want to have hospitalizations and death, because again, that's really what's happened, every time one of these waves hits. So again, it's really important for us to focus on that group first, and then it'll be everyone else's turn. It'll be my turn and anybody else's turn that's not in that group. So again, I just want to emphasize that. Be patient. I understand it's been a long time. I get it. It's been a long year. It's been certainly a long year at Lorain County Public Health, I'll tell you that. But I just hang on a little bit longer. One last thing I want to talk about before we open for questions is, so people have asked, why do I need to wear a mask after I'm vaccinated? The reason is we're not sure if you could still possibly get enough virus in you before your body kills it and then maybe spread it. And so until we get enough people vaccinated, we just want to wear masks and stay 6 feet apart and wash your hands just a little bit longer. And then once enough people are vaccinated, then we'll be able to go back to more of a normal situation.
No, that's great, Commissioner. Thank you. A couple questions I have that have come up. One is just a simple question of where do people go to sign up?
Sure. So the best way to go to sign up is to go to LorainCountyHealth.com. And when you get there, you'll see a big red banner that says COVID-19. You just click on there and there's a little sign up sheet right there. And you can sign up and it asks you what your age is and what your category is. And so you go there and then we'll notify you as soon as vaccine's available.
Great. And then the second question is that there's been a lot of questions about the efficacy of the vaccine in terms of this new variant that's out there. Could you speak to what the science is showing so far?
So far, so good on that. One of the things is the current vaccine affects the spike protein. That's that little spikiness that you see when you see a picture of COVID-19. And so that spike protein has been consistent among all the different variants because the virus is changing, but the spike protein stays the same. So again, that's actually shown some really good effectiveness. AstraZeneca, which is not approved here in the United States yet, is the one that's really been struggling with the new variants. But really the COVID or the Pfizer, the Moderna, and even the Johnson & Johnson apparently is going to have pretty good effectiveness against the new variant. So far, so good. The key is to get as many people vaccinated before some variant does come up that maybe we can't control as well.
Yep. So again, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll go to you. Commissioner, again, I might open it up to the floor to you, but I just appreciate the communication we've had throughout this journey. And, you know, that's part of why we're looking at June 1 as kind of the date where we feel, or Memorial Day actually being the day where we feel like, hey, let's start to go back to a sense of normalcy in terms of our activity. So I appreciate all the guidance that you provided on that front. And again, we're hoping that this rollout picks up pace a little bit. I understand that, you know, supply is a challenge right now. And that's one of the pieces that's impacting us. But once that supply is there, I'm hoping that we can get folks vaccinated so we can get back to normal. But I'll open the floor for any questions. Were there any hands raised, Ren?
See Martinez.
Okay, Mr. Martinez, go ahead.
Am I on?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure I couldn't tell. Dave, I like you did a really nice job of reinforcing what I thought was happening. But the reason I'm asking these questions is because I'm part of St. Jude's Block Watch and Neighborhood Block Watch, and I want to reinforce them when I get questions, okay? Because they ask me for a lot of questions. And I understand what happened with your problem at LC. And that happens because people just do what they want to do a lot of times. But here's my question that they might ask me, okay? And it's after the fact, all right? Here you got the older people. Now we're starting at 65, but it's more to 70 and up. And I assume we still have 70 and up people out there. I really don't know. You probably know better than I do. But the question I have, so I can answer it when I was, couldn't older people have been handled separately from the rest of the population, so sort of they're scheduled every 50 minutes, or would that be impractical for the time period you need to get this done?
Yeah, so most of the time, so most of the time we do not schedule a 1A clinic, that's medical people, and an older adult clinic at the same time. We usually try not to do that because, again, it makes people feel like, hey, well, that person's only 40, they cut in line in front of me. So that's for no other reason really than that. So that's one issue, in which that LCC one was actually a medical and half older adult. So that became a bit of an issue. We are, if you're 80 plus and you sign up today on our website, you are invited before, you're the first group that gets invited. So in other words, once we invite them all, then they come, and then we have people updated, they update and they come in, after that. We again invite all the older ones first. So we keep doing that so that if you're 80 plus and you haven't signed up yet, you can still sign up now and you'll still be invited quickly. And so the answer is, this week will be the first week that we really open it up to 65. We've done mostly 70, we had 75 before that and 80 before that. We've gotten through all the people who are 80 on our site have already been invited at least once. 75, I think all of those have also been invited. We still have some in the 70s, and then of course a lot still in the 65.
Because one thing I noticed too, communication has gotten better at your end. Email, okay, about signing up. I signed up, but it wasn't my turn yet because I wasn't, what was the first one, 85? Whatever the first one was. So that was the first email, okay? But then when it was my turn, I didn't get a second email, so I called about it to know what to do because you did change the way you did things, and somebody did send out the email. I don't know if I caused that problem, but the whole key about everywhere what's going on with this issue, it's just not you. We're finally getting the communication so we understand, because I understand you gotta be patient. But the problem is at the beginning, communication wasn't, it's happening. And we all appreciate that. Just keep us informed what's going on because we know it's going to take time. And I really appreciate seeing more communication at your end. I'm already scheduled. It's not an issue with me. I just try to understand for when I'm asked the question.
We also,
Thank you again.
just to give you a little more, we also started a robocall function for reminders for people too, so that, because I know sometimes it goes into people's spam or the email's just not the best way. They don't check it as often. So we also have a secondary robocall too. So both of those two things will be happening from now on.
Commissioner, we have two questions coming in from the chat. The first is from Yvette Miller, who wants to know, will our personal physicians have vaccines available? And in this regard, kind of before the county?
Yeah, they haven't been part of the puzzle at this point, just because there hasn't been that much vaccine. So pharmacy partners have been the key, hospitals, and then us. And so I don't know when that'll be available at the physician by physician level, but it's probably a little while from now.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have another question through the chat from Lauren Cantrell that asks, in the future, will the county look to partner with employers to offer the vaccine to people who live outside of the county?
Well, we will be partnering with employers, as that's called a closed pod. Okay, so that's a scenario where maybe Ford Motor Company or a variety of different larger businesses may say, I have 150 employees. Can we do something just in my facility? And the answer is yes. And it doesn't that won't matter if they're in or outside the county at that point. Remember, that's when we vaccinate more people, when we're below the 65 and over group. So that's probably going to happen in the spring.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Commissioner. Any other questions for the Commissioner? We'll take one more. I just want to I see you, Mr. Martinez. I just want to see if there's any others. And then if not, we'll come to you. Is there any other questions? All right, Mr. Martinez, you get the last question.
I just looked at my questions. Another question I have when they, again, this isn't my concern. When they sign up in your site to go somewhere, will it always be within our own community, or they might have to go into another community when they're scheduled? Dave?
So,
do you understand the question?
Yeah, so here's what's going on now and what will change in the next few weeks, just so you're ready for this. So right now you're kind of stuck if you're next in line and you happen to have to go to Columbia, or you may have to go to Amherst, or you may have to go to, Avon, or, wherever that might be. In the future, we're going to have an opportunity. As a matter of fact, it's coming in the next few weeks, an opportunity where we think we're going to have enough vaccine. We'll have 3 locations and 3 timeframes on our website. And you can sign up for whatever is more important to you, time or geographic location. And so that's coming. It'll be over the next few weeks. We're going to start rolling that out because, again, if we have enough vaccine to do that, we can just schedule those 3 clinics, and then you can decide which one's more important to you.
Okay, Dave, we got
Very
one more
good.
question. Can you call on them to who's the question, and can they ask their question, Ren?
So this question came from Penny Lynch.
Penny, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, cool. When I was looking at the categories, trying to figure out what category I fell in, I have the health issues, but I've not been hospitalized, and that's how it's broken down. So I'm kind of assuming I wait until the end of it to be vaccinated, or when do the high-risk people that haven't been in the hospital get vaccinated?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's a great question.
So the state has actually been dealing with that a little bit. So it started with, if you're high risk and you have a developmental disability, then it was if you're high risk and you've been hospitalized, and soon it'll be just if you're high risk. And so I assume those will be coming out over the next couple of weeks. That's really the state who kind of declares that, and then we just follow along. So it'll probably be in the next couple
there's
weeks.
no specific level that we fall in.
Yeah, you'll still be in 1B, It's just that not unlike the age groups where they all 65 and over were in 1B, but it was
Okay.
85 and then 80 and then 70. You know, that's kind of how it worked. It'll be the same with this. So
Okay.
over the next week or two, you should hear about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. That's important. I've gotten some calls from folks who are more high at risk and wondering where they fall on this as well. And so it's good to hear that they won't be lumped in with the rest of the general population. Is that correct? They'll be still on a higher priority list.
Right. Now, it's important to remember that, you know, that list of what is considered high risk is still will need to be well defined, right? So that'll depend, but as long as they fall into one of those categories, they'll be next. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, Commissioner, for joining us tonight. I know you got another thing you got to jump to, but thank you so much for joining us tonight, and looking forward to continue to get us through this pandemic and get us back to, or get us to a new normal. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the economy in terms of give you some updates on what's going on in terms of economic development in the city. As you know, this is one of the key pillars of which we ran on and what our focus is on for the city of Elyria. We rolled out a strategy with a goal of creating 2,025 jobs by 2025. And our strategy, together, we will do this, and it was through getting in our bag together. I'm laughing at my dad jokes. I get cracked on often for having these dad jokes, but it was trying to be creative with getting in our bag together. But the B stood for building a city for entrepreneurs. The A was for attracting employers to investing in our workforce, and the G was around growing the companies that exist in Elyria. So I'll start with the G. So we've been having conversations, especially prior to the pandemic, just interviewing our businesses saying, hey, how can we make it easier to do business here in the city of Elyria? What could we be doing better? How can we help you expand? And we really identified a couple things that we could help businesses out with. One is around workforce and helping them close the gap with their workforce needs. Looking at our incentives, whether they're different tax incentives like the CRA credits, you just saw us approve those the other day in the meeting, the enterprise zone incentives, the job creation incentives. So really looking at our incentives. We also look at our role as a convener and being able to help businesses network with one another as a part of our role as a city. The next is engaging employers. We feel like there's so many opportunities for service in our city that's a great way for employers to get that engagement amongst their employees. And the last piece is marketing, just helping companies to get their name out there. So doing what we can from our pulpit to be able to encourage people to shop local, support local. And so if you're interested in being a part of that group, if you're a small business who wants to be a part of this ETAB Council, this Economic Transformation and Business Service Council, email me at mayor@cityofelyria.org. Our next meeting is going to be on March 12th at 3 p.m. And if you logged into this, hopefully we have your contact info. But if you're interested, email me at mayor@cityofelyria.org, and we'll plug you into that. I have Dawn on here as well, and Dawn, if you could speak a little bit about what's going on downtown, and then also about the CDC that we have going as well. Dawn is our leader in the city on economic transformation and business services. She's a part of our team, and I just want to make sure people have a face with a name, and feel free to share with any highlights. I know the mall is a topic we'll talk about as well, but definitely want to talk about downtown as another hot topic.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone on the call. So glad that you're able to make it with us here tonight. So downtown is one of the topics I hear. That and Midway Mall, like the mayor said, are probably the two most popular topics I hear from people. And the question I get a lot is why not us? Why can't we be Sandusky? Why can't we be Medina? Why can't we be, any of these communities that have, really experienced a revival? And the truth is we can be, but some of the challenges we have had downtown is, building owners not necessarily interested in leasing space or improving their properties. We don't have the site control over those. So there are personal property rights. So we have to be careful about what we do and don't do with the individual property owners in those sites. And then, of course, economics. So the cost to rehab buildings, the cost to, you know, renovate historic buildings, and the rents that can be brought to bear in a city like Elyria that was once had more population downtown, but now has less. One of our best assets is that when pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID, when we get back to that post-COVID world, is that there's 8,000 to 10,000 people coming into the city every day through the different local government agencies, since we are the county seat. So when we take a look at all these things, all these factors, when we came in and said, what do we have to do to help encourage development? We've come up with 3 programs just in the past year. So we have 3 new programs that we're offering. One is a downtown demolition grant, which we have to help take those properties who they're not going to be able to get back into a useful life very easily. We have created that program. We have a new program that we're optimistic is going to come online here very, very soon that will help support rehabilitation of historic buildings downtown. So that's also a grant-based program that will help with that. And then we also, we approved property assessed clean energy financing throughout the city. So that's not specific to downtown, but it's very helpful because it allows people to make energy efficiency improvement projects and finance them through property assessments. So it's a great tool, and it is eligible things like roof repair or windows, doors, HVAC, all of those things can be bundled into a qualifying PACE financing project. So we've had all these different programs we created to help incentivize somebody to redevelop their properties and to put them back into useful life in downtown. The other thing that we've done is we are working to create a community development corporation. So anyone on the line who's not familiar with what a community development corporation or CDC is, it's a nonprofit agency that works to benefit the community. And one area that we have focused on really is around downtown. So we'll be looking at things like special events downtown. We'll be looking at business development and networking for the businesses located downtown. And we will really be looking, to enhance the experience for people who come to downtown. And that is something, if you want to participate in that, you can email me at dcalvert@cityofelyria.org. You can email the mayor. We would be more than happy to get you plugged into that effort. And that initiative is just kicking off. So we'll be all ears on ideas and, as many volunteers as we can, because at the end of the day, this is something we're building for the city. So it's not just the city trying to do this. We're doing it on behalf of the citizens, the residents, and the businesses. So we want to make sure that we have that input. So you can see there's a lot happening around downtown, and we are starting to see the investment come in. We are starting to see certain properties move. And I think that, barring any big national economic changes, we're going to see a very different, more vibrant, more inclusive downtown Elyria in the near future.
No doubt. No, thank you for that update, Dawn. I want to open up the floor. Oh, I did want to talk briefly about Midway Mall. So downtown, as Dawn mentioned, is a little more complex because you have, more than a dozen different owners that you have to try to, influence to go a certain direction. And again, you got certain businesses that have been down there for a long time that some people may not be too fond of, don't think it's necessarily the family friendliest business down, but this is America. So they have the ability to do that business there. But we're trying to do what we can to influence the type of dynamics we want downtown. But with Midway Mall, it's a little bit more clear. It's not easier, but it's a little more clear, because at Midway Mall, there's in essence 3 owners of the Midway Mall. And so a part of what we've been doing is trying to get those owners on the same page and collaborate, work together, essentially get the property under site control under one leader, one owner. So we've been doing a lot of that work behind the scenes, as well as you probably read, working on this rezone and the zoning overlay so that the mall can be used for things other than retail. And so we're really excited about that because a lot of people have asked, even throughout the campaign, and people have always just wondered, why isn't an Amazon at the mall? But technically right now, the way it's zoned, an Amazon wouldn't be able to do business at the mall. They would have to get the mall and then ask for it to be rezoned. So we're trying to eliminate that step out and make sure that the business community knows if there's a distribution center out there that is interested in having a fulfillment center, a distribution center at Midway Mall, that it can do so. So we've gone through that process, and now it's going through the last stages with City Council to get that approved. So hopefully we'll see some traction here soon with Midway Mall. And we're working really closely with one of the major developers who's done these developments around the state and around the country to try to make sure it becomes the highest and best use for Midway Mall. So I'll open it up there just in terms of questions that folks may have. And then I want to share with you an exciting project that we have that we want you all to get involved in. So any questions so far? I see Mr. Martinez. We got to ask some more questions. We can't let Mr. Martinez take all the questions. Kick us off though, Mr. Martinez. Get us going. You got to unmute.
I'm probably on mute.
There you go.
This is an observation because I've been working when I first started working, I worked in Cleveland for 11 years downtown in the 70s. Then I left, I went working in the suburbs. I went over because of the service. But an observation I had about Cleveland in the 70s, I always believed, and I knew there's a
Mr. Martinez.
number one, the workforce supported downtown to do. I'm sorry.
You were breaking up.
And the reason why, yeah, it's because I'm getting internet interference for some reason. I don't know why. I'm gonna move. See if I can go somewhere else. Let me move.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to you then. If you can mute him, we'll come back to him. And anyone else got any questions on downtown or Midway Mall? Or comments? It doesn't have to be just questions, but any comments, questions on Midway or downtown? I'm gonna start calling on y'all because I do see your name. So I'm the type that will call on you and say, hey, what question do you have? So hope you're getting your questions ready because toward the end of the presentation, I'm just gonna open the floor for us to just have a dialogue. But go ahead, Mr. Take another shot at it.
Hear me okay now? I moved to get better reception.
Okay.
Let's see, where was I at? One thing I learned.
You're talking about
working downtown. Right. And the workforce supported downtown. And the reason why they're able to support downtown because we all had an hour lunch. And being the workforce took staggered lunch times, they reinforced the stores and the restaurants. But again, the key to who shops, I don't care what anybody says, you gotta attract the women. They're the shoppers. The men are the eaters. And
I like this stuff.
And when people say about yeah, well, I do too. I look for the deals. I do the grocery shopping.
Gotcha.
But the other thing is,
Mr. Martinez, you're cutting out again. Let's go ahead and mute him. I want to respond to the idea about the workforce downtown supporting the downtown. Ren, can you go ahead and do that?
Right.
So downtown, as Dawn mentioned, there's about 8,000 to 10,000 people who come downtown a day. And that's why it's so important to get the county to have a strong relationship with the county because they're one of our top employers in the city. And a lot of the folks that come downtown are doing business with the county. And so it's important that we have amenities for them to shop and entrepreneurs ready for them when they're coming into work, out of work, on lunch break. And part of what we'll be talking about later on tonight is how do we capture that group and keep them into Elyria and spend in Elyria. So I definitely think, you know, if you've been in towns like DC, you'll see how, with it being the nation's capital, how lively the city is between 9 and 5, but then it takes a different tone after 5. And I think that that's just a part of the nature of Elyria, that between that 9 to 5, we have a great opportunity with all these people down here we need to capitalize on. And then, the weekends and evenings, I think it's more for our residents and those occasional visitors, and we need to design a good downtown for that. So that's what this CDC is really going to be helping us take advantage of. Other questions about the mall or downtown?
Mayor, we have.
Mayor, may we interject?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes,
This
please.
is Sharon and Ann. Hi. We live in the Eastern Heights area. Hi. Thank you for having this town hall meeting. We're excited to be here this evening. Just curious if there's any movement on what's happening with the Friendlies and the auto body shop that are at the end of Park that are just going into disrepair and just kind of a blemish on this area. Is there anything in the works for those buildings? Thank you.
So thank you for that, Sharon. And I believe Director Brubaker, is he still on? I know he had the slide, but he might be able to give an update on the Friendlies building in particular, because we have had our eyes on that building. Director Brubaker?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think someone had sent us information a couple weeks ago regarding the disrepair of that building. We have notified the owner. We've issued notice of violations. We've also started a process to go after that building from an interior investigation standpoint to see if there's something that would give us the opportunity. I don't want to say demolish it, because a lot of people don't like things being demolished, but looking at it from that standpoint, my understanding is that they may have a potential buyer for that. They did not disclose that information, but we have a follow-up inspection on that on Friday. The gas station that you're referring to, I think, is the old Schroeder's gas station. That's the first that I've heard there's an issue with that, Sharon and Ann. I know where it's at. I know they had all the gas tanks removed several years ago as an abatement so they could sell that property, and I will dig into that a little bit this week.
The hospital actually owns that. From my understanding, the hospital purchased that.
Okay. We could
So
reach out. We could reach out through Ms. Culvert, or through the mayor could contact over at the hospital and see if they have any plans for that property.
But thank you for bringing that up.
So much.
Yeah, as we're looking at Broad Street and that getting redone, that's the gateway into the city, and it's important that as people are traveling into our city, that they're seeing vibrancy and they're seeing revitalization, seeing dilapidated buildings like that, that there's no place for that. We need to clean this up. And that was part of what we did downtown. We got a lot of heat for it at first, but, my second month on the job, I had news reporters in my face with cameras about bricks falling off a building. And so, we cracked down. We went around and we did property assessments, and we issued citations and told folks, hey, you got to invest and fix this or get rid of it. And we're fortunate we got some amazing new owners downtown that are just super, like Dan Martin with the wine bar, super creative guy that's got a bunch of vision. You got Mr. Flanagan, who's done the Foundry, has done the coffee shop, a lot of vision as well. Of course, you got the library that's coming up down there. You got the pizza shop that's coming on down there. So there's a lot of momentum right now. And I really feel like, to Dawn's point earlier, by this time next year, we'll have a much different downtown. Ren, I see hands, and I see there was some stuff in the chat, but go ahead, Ren, if you want to call on folks.
Yeah, I see Dr. Jama has had his hand raised. Dr. Jama.
Oh, yeah? Hey, Dr. Jama.
Dr. Jama, I've asked to unmute. You might have to click there.
Can you hear me okay?
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having this evening. Just a couple questions. One, I know we're talking about the downtown a lot, and hopefully a lot of activity as COVID ends this summer and this spring. Has there been any thought, and you talk about weekends and evenings, has there ever been a thought about bringing a patrol back with a officer or officers walking a beat, or bringing the bike patrol back? Because I know a lot of concerns are people with safety, and that's always been an issue. And I think if they see uniformed officers on bike patrols and or walking a beat, I think it will help individuals come back downtown to the area. I know with the fountain being done, we're going to try to get a lot of people in the square as well. And just by that type of presence, I think will improve the overall belief that it is okay to come back downtown.
No, thank you, Dr. John. That's a great point and something that we'll make sure we have some more conversation with Chief Whiteley about. You know, a part of what I hoped with some of this kind of what I like to call soft policing, just kind of having a presence, not necessarily there to enforce and look for crime, but just to make sure people feel secure. I really felt like that's a role for auxiliary officers to have their presence down there. We've tried to engage them a lot, but you know, the city of Elyria, we don't pay our auxiliaries. In other cities, they actually pay them a small stipend or wage. We don't do that in Elyria. So that's something that it makes it challenging to kind of commit them to things without any pay. So that's something we started to visit last year that we'll have to continue to visit, because you're right, there is a concern around safety. Though there hasn't been much crime downtown. It's actually one of the safest places in the city.
Yes.
There's still the perception, though. There's still the perception, and you know, lighting is also another issue as well. So this downtown group is really going to kind of tackle that, because in other communities, like in Cleveland, they have what they call, I believe it's called an ESID. And Dawn, you might be able to help me with this, but it's when the building owners all chip in, they pay a portion of their property tax, I believe, into a pool that then funds to keep downtown clean and safe. So it pays for security or police to actually, I don't know what they're called in Cleveland, but you'll see they wear a different uniform and they're out cleaning up downtown. They're out keeping it safe. And I believe it's called an ESID. What is that, Dawn, that they have?
Yep, it's called a SID. It stands for Special Improvement District. So just like the mayor said, it's a property assessed fee, I guess, that you would pool together within a district to help with those special services like policing or beautification or whatever the group would determine would be an eligible expense.
And that's a process. Again, the building owners have to really take the lead on and say, we want this, we subscribe into this. And then once you get a certain number of them, then it kind of goes into effect legislatively. And then again, those monies are pooled, and then you can have that presence downtown. But that's a great idea, Dr. John. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ren, what's the next you got on there?
Yeah, so we kind of addressed this a little bit in talking about the zoning, but I'm just wondering if it could maybe be clarified again. So there's a question about some of the rumors about development at the mall, and just wondering, Mayor, if yourself or maybe Director Calvert can talk about the zoning update there to address some of those rumors.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's all in, if it gets approved by council, that the people who own the mall can actually start to go out and market it as a site for that. But until that is approved through council, then they won't, they can't assure an Amazon that they can do it. Once they, and I hate to use Amazon because there's so many other players out there besides them, but that's kind of the one that's in people's heads. That once that process gets approved, then they'll be able to make that case. I'm going to switch over cameras too.
Thank you, Mayor. So
Dawn, you want?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could add to that. So in the economic development world, when a company's looking at a site and they're evaluating it for a potential development project, that time frame from when they would show up on site and evaluate the site and be breaking ground was about 18 months until a couple of years ago when that time frame got compressed, and it's now 6 months. And the challenge we've had with Midway Mall is that it is currently zoned. I'm sorry? Oh,
My bad.
It's currently zoned business general. And we feel, and all the market research we've done and the partners that we've talked to have indicated that distribution, logistics, and light industrial, because of the transportation infrastructure there, is probably the highest and best use for it. But that means we had a chicken and an egg problem. We couldn't proactively market it given that 6-month compressed time frame, which equals money and risk and time to the developer, that they would have to petition for the rezoning of that property and hope for the best. So what the zoning overlay allows us to do is add that layer of light industrial with some different contingencies with it to have proactive outreach and marketing done by the brokers who represent those properties. So we've been able to shorten that time frame, assuming it passes, and be more competitive in the marketplace. So it takes some of that risk away from the developer by having it proactively rezoned. So at the same time, it doesn't limit the use for the existing businesses that are there. They can still operate under that business general. So that's the reason we've done it, is to allow for that proactive development. You know, I know the Amazon rumor is out there, and certainly we would love to accommodate Amazon. So Amazon, if you're listening, my email is in the comments. But we want to make sure we're being very proactive in making sure that any development that comes along the way that is good for the city can happen there at that site.
Thank you for that, Ms. Calvin. I just got a message from Councilman Sarah that there's a special council meeting on February 22nd where they will be voting and God willing will be approving. I saw somebody put in the chat, their Alexa is listening. So they got the connection with Amazon. So they might do the Alexa, make the referral, but hopefully the City Council will be approving that on the 22nd. I do want to shift gears to talk about the social side of things. So a part of our other part of the work that needs to be done. So we knew, through the pandemic, we were hit hard economically as a country, also as a city. We're feeling the impacts of that from our income tax base and feeling that from people being unemployed and needing food assistance. We're feeling that economic strain. But there's also been a social strain that has happened through the pandemic where people are feeling more isolated. If you're like me, you've put on the quarantine 15. There's just a lot that has happened to us socially, even the unrest that we saw after the murder of George Floyd. There's a lot socially that we need to recover from. So we have come up with this project that we're calling the Ely Life Project. And Ren, I think you have some slides. If you can pull up that Ely Life slide, we'll kind of talk about what our objectives are with this Ely Life Project. So Ely Life is an acronym that stands for leisure. Here we go. Leisure, inspiration, fitness, and entertainment. So on the leisure side, it's really an encouragement to our city to support local restaurants and businesses, explore our trails, our biking, and our parks development to really get out there and improve the leisure opportunities that are within our city. The second is for the city to really support the arts and community service opportunities. So really that inspirational force within the city. So that's the inspirational side. The fitness side, as I mentioned, having this quarantine 15, so many of us need to get fit again. So starting to offer more programmatic opportunities, and this is where we're looking for community support as well, partnering with organizations and individuals who are specialized in fitness to really increase our offerings within the city of us getting fit together. And the last piece being entertainment. So many of us have been at home. We've binge watched everything we could on Netflix. We're pretty much done and we're ready to get out and about. So really going to be trying to create platforms for artists this summer and into the fall to perform, not only at the square, but in our parks and really crank up our entertainment within the city. So a part of this is motivated by the feedback we got from our Parks Master Plan survey. And we have with us tonight Pat Hoagland, who is the grandson of the founder of our Parks and Rec department, who helped us with our master planning and getting feedback from you all on what you wanted to see in the park. And so we're going to talk through a couple of those pieces of feedback we got from you all. But before we do that, Pat, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background and the survey?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm Pat Hoagland. I work for a company called Branstetter Carroll. I grew up in Elyria. My dad was the director there for about 30 years in Parks and Recreation. And that's the reason I decided to become a landscape architect specializing in Parks and Recreation, is because seeing north, south, east, and west parks built when I was a child. So I've always had a strong relationship with the parks there in Elyria, and then had the opportunity in 2015 to work on a master plan to improve the parks. And now we're in the process of updating some of that now that issue 6 has been renewed. to help identify what some of those priorities should be that you want the most, and how the city should spend those funds wisely. So
Ren, you want to pull up some of those surveys that we got? So part of the pieces that we really saw, I don't know which one you're going to go to first, so I'll wait for her to pull it up. So again, this kind of shows some of the demographics. It was a nice, well-rounded group in terms of the feedback we got. You can continue on. But this, this was a key piece. So Pat, talk about this, what this question means, and then the feedback we got.
We asked people, what some of their unmet needs are. If they have plenty of, for example, soccer fields, whatever, then they wouldn't necessarily have an unmet need. But what are those things that you have to travel further or that you really don't have access to? And indoor swimming was the highest of those. Then the dog park, 29%, swimming pools, outdoor aquatic centers, 22%, and then trails. There was more on the list, but those were the ones that got the most attention. We do park system master plans all over the country, and trails and aquatics come to the top everywhere. So
part of what we'll, and I'm going to pass to Carrie in a minute to talk about our response to some of these, but what's the next one, Ren? Go to the next slide. So here's where some more of the resident recommendations of more, you can speak to these, Pat.
Yeah, we asked how they wanted to improve the parks, and things like drinking fountains, better restrooms. Usually restrooms is number one, but it was second on this one. More security cameras, things like lighting in the parks, make them feel safer. And then the bike trails to connect the parks and the neighborhoods, and then dog parks. A lot of dog lovers in Elyria.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then we asked a similar question about the programs and what unmet programs or what kind of things don't you have access to? So fitness and wellness programs for adults was at the top of the list. And then things like concerts and performances and outdoor movies that bring a community together is something that people really want to see more of. They want that sense of community that you get from gathering as a group to enjoy these programs.
That's awesome.
Then we also asked people why they don't use parks, facilities, and programs more often. And 31% said they just don't know what's being offered or where they're located. So that's an important thing that with some additional marketing funds, and if Carrie has more staff that can use social media more often and get the word out more, you can do that. And then we asked people how they'd like to learn about programs and facilities. Social media was the top, actually tied with email to the respondents, and then going to the city's website. So people typically like to use electronic means, but there's other means as well, because not everybody has good access to social media and computers.
Yeah, so that's the reason why we put Ren Flanders in the role that she is as Assistant Safety Service Director, because this was something we heard across the city, was that people just wanted to be more informed on what's going on and know what's happening, what opportunities exist. So Ren is really, taking the lead on making sure we're looking at the way we communicate, how we communicate, and how often. So hopefully you'll see, we've updated the website, we have a newsletter now, but hopefully you'll start to see more of that communication coming out. But go ahead to the next slide, because I want to make sure Carrie gets the opportunity to speak. All right, let's go back. So yeah, let's go back to the unmet needs piece, because we have some direct responses to some of these requests. And Carrie, if you could speak about the dog park plan for this year, as well as give any trail updates we have for this year as well, that'd be great.
Yep, that's actually two of the notes that I made. So yeah, the dog park, we've talked, and dog park at Hilltop sometime this year. We do have to wait for the budget to be passed, but that is in the process, at least starting the process. So again, no timeline on that, but there will be a dog park at Hilltop this year. And then the other thing, like the mayor had said, the trails, East opened up, I believe sometime in the summer. South is in the process right now. They did have to stop in the fall because of the really wet weather, but that should be starting up again here soon. So that will also be completed this year. And then, we currently have a grant in for a trail at West, but if we do not get that grant, there still is a plan in place to do a trail at West. So, each of the bigger parks, knock on wood, hopefully by the end of this year, if everything goes, according to plan, will each have their own trail.
Awesome. Thank you, Director. And I think, again, part of the other piece around this swimming, I wanted to have some dialogue with you, with the residents about, because Pat, if you could, swimming is not, it's not, creating new aquatic centers isn't a simple, easy endeavor, but it's possible. So can you talk about what communities have gone through, who have gone on these journeys to create these larger aquatic centers, and the kind of lessons learned?
Well, there's two things here. One is the indoor swimming, and then the outdoor. And let's talk about the outdoor first. Elyria one time had 5 pools because all the money came to our front porch every night. It's where it came to before they had night deposit boxes, I guess. But we remember seeing managers from all 5 come to the house. And but over the years, just the numbers of people that are going to the pools dwindled. And you start looking at the older pools, the rectangles and L-shaped pools. There's nothing in there for the 2 to 10-year-olds. They don't feel comfortable in the baby pool, or they don't feel comfortable in 3.5 feet of water. So those communities that have built pools with a lot more family-friendly facilities actually can break even on their operating costs rather than operating at a deficit. A lot of communities, closer to Cleveland, like Westlake, Bay Village, Rocky River, they all do pretty well on their aquatic facilities because they're more family friendly with lazy rivers and zero depth entry, so it goes in like a beach. And just fun things for the whole family to do rather than just toddlers and teenagers before all of that. So, but the city just can't afford to operate as many as they used to have. So I think that the best solution would be to have one really good pool someplace in the city. The more centrally located, the better. Our firm did a study several years ago, came to that conclusion, but a site in the center of the city wasn't available. So looking at it now, the question is which park, existing park possibly, would be the best place for an outdoor aquatic center.
Yeah, and one of the things that we saw in the feedback was, again, the challenge with the indoor, but the opportunity. I mean, when you look at Avon, when you look at Oberlin and Splash Zone, you look at Amherst with Mercy, we see it happen, but it happens through partnership. It's not these cities going at it alone. They're in partnership with the metro parks, in both of those cases, in partnership with the metro parks.
Right.
And so I think a part of the call for the community has to be calling out to the metro parks and saying, hey, we want this in Elyria. We want to see what you've done in other cities. We want to see it done here in Elyria. And I think now the city has at least a base that we can come to the table with in terms of resources to say, hey, we're not coming empty-handed. We have a base here. Let's find the right location that makes sense. And then we probably need that third leg of the stool with some sort of healthcare provider. So I've already started to initiate some conversations with some of the local hospitals around their needs around occupational therapy and how they may be able to use a pool to meet some of their needs. But what else have you seen that makes the indoor play work?
It's the programming that they offer. It's year-round programming, the swim lessons, the aquatic exercise. Just especially like during the day when the kids are in school, well, hopefully someday when they're in school, the seniors use the pools quite a bit. A lot of great programming can take place at an indoor pool. They're just pretty expensive to operate. So that's one thing you've got to keep in mind.
I saw someone posted in the comments about would be a great partner, and their McKinley with them now hopefully taking the McKinley building. We have talked to them about that actually before I was mayor. When I was at the Urban League, I talked to them about that. And we're hoping that they see that as an opportunity. Somebody mentioned about fundraising here. It definitely would take a capital campaign and try to get community buy-in to make this happen as well. But what we really need to get a pulse check on is twofold. One is the feasibility of it, where we can do it. Do we have the right partners? And then Pat, to the point you brought up earlier around people participating and taking advantage and utilizing it. I think that's the other piece, is that whenever we do something, so you heard Director Reardon mention, we're going to have the dog park stood up this year at Hilltop. We need to see people out there with their dogs every day that they can. These trails, we need to see people out there using these trails every day. We need to see people using the programs that are there, and we're going to do our job to make sure we communicate the opportunities, but we need community to step up and really take advantage of it. So there's really one other announcement I really wanted to make in this space was that this year, under the leadership of Director Reardon, we're planning to have our pools open this year, our ice rink fully open this season, summer camps this year. So we're going back. The COVID June 1, as you heard from the health commissioner earlier, it's kind of the date in our minds and our planning of when we can start to have folks regather. And so again, when that pool opens, it better be sold out. It better be at capacity. We better see, man, there's people out. We had to turn people away today because too many people want to swim. And, we want to see that, summer camps are full because everybody's got their kids signed up for it. And the ice rink is full. You can go to the ice rink right now, actually. You can sign up and go to that now. But we just want to see people taking full advantage of the park system that we have because, it's a great asset that we have here in the city. We want to make sure you take advantage of it. And in relation to the other piece I mentioned earlier around programming and fitness, we know there's a lot of people in the city of Elyria that have skills that they can offer, not only to young people, but adults as well. We have a partnership we're launching with Tracy Sprinkle, former NFL player who's from Elyria. He's going to be doing some classes on fitness, offering it to residents. But there's so many of you out there as well that love fitness, that would love to train, love offer. Some people are doing it for free, some people for a nominal fee. But we want to know if you're interested in helping us to do programming. And we love it when it's Illyrians, when it's Illyrians who are giving their Illyrian talent to one another. And so that's in the fitness space. But also, as we look at summer camps, there could be companies out there, and we've had some conversation with some already, that are interested in teaching young people about a trade or about a specific industry. And they want to host a 2-day camp at their company where kids come and learn about their business and learn about a new career path. And they feed them, play some games with them, and send them back. Or we make a part of the camp traveling to them and checking them out. But we were trying to gauge interest in being a part of the solution. As you know, if you've been around me of any amount of time, I'm all about calls to action, getting people involved. It can't just be a spectator sport. We need you to participate. So I believe, Ren, how are people supposed to sign up? You can email me at mayor@cityofelyria.org, but how else can people, you put an interest form on the website. Go ahead, Ren.
Yep, great question. So like Mayor Whitfield said, you could email at mayor@cityofelyria.org, or if you kind of already have an idea of what you could bring to the city in regards to programming, there is a simple form on cityofelyria.org. It is the first announcement on the webpage. Just click that link, fill out the form. It just asks your name, email address, phone number, and an idea of what you think you can bring to the city.
And we'll be keeping our website updated with content on these programs and opportunities, again, these concerts, and it'll be a collaboration across departments. It's going to be Mayor's office working with Parks and Rec, working with engineering, working with the Safety Service Department, working with community partners to make this work. It's going to be an all-inclusive effort. And, as we mentioned, you can fill out this form if you're interested in being a part of that. And what do you have next? Because I know we're getting close to time and I want to open the floor up for questions. We got about, I said till 7, I think. So I want to make sure I open the floor for any questions. But we'll be making sure that we stand up. You'll be able to find this Ely Life brand getting out there. And we want you to make sure you sign up and get involved. But we'll spend the last 10 minutes really just opening the floor for any questions you may have. Ring, I know you said there were some questions coming through the chat, so we can start there. But then we're here to answer any other questions you may have. So yes, go ahead, Ren.
There were a few questions just earlier around some of the economic developments pieces that we said we'd come back to.
Okay.
So got kind of a comment from Jackie, just looking forward to working with the CDC to help the growth of downtown and beyond. And it was followed up by a question from Peggy asking about will citizens, residents be able to volunteer with improving downtown? Don and Mayor, can you speak to how people can get involved through the CDC?
Yes, so most definitely. I think that the CDC is going to be that body that probably traditionally looked like a Main Street in other communities that worked on those beautification projects, also informing us as a city, as we get resources and grants specifically for downtown, this will be the group that we engage with to say, hey, for instance, we have a grant that we got through NOPEC to do an event. And so we're telling this group, hey, come up with an event that you want to do for the community. And there's a budget amount that we have that we can contribute as a seed funding. You can go out and fundraise for more to do it. And so we're hoping that, this body is that group that actually pulls that off. So again, if you're interested in getting involved in that CDC, email me at mayor@cityofelyria.org, and we'll pull you into that work as well.
I have another question from Yvette. Are there any financial programs currently in place for startup businesses for minorities or financial expansion programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is around resources available for minority businesses to start or expand. This is one of the areas where, prior to here, I was the president of the Urban League, and we did a lot of work supporting minority businesses. And a lot of those resources still exist. You have the Minority Business Assistance Center at the Urban League. You have the Small Business Development Center at the community college. You have the chamber. So they're all kind of links to resources. But one of the projects that we failed at this past year was I wanted to start a business incubator, and we just weren't able to pull it off. We tried it just before the pandemic hit, and just politically it didn't work out. But we haven't given up. We just had to try a new route. And again, we're hoping through the CDC we can start to get some of these things done that maybe we weren't able to get through the city body. But right now, I would really point people toward the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center at Lorain County Community College, as well as the Chamber of Commerce as a resource. But there needs to be more resources out there. There's not enough. And I'm hoping whenever I ask that question, continue to push for more. You're muted, Ren.
Thank you. Got a question about some of the plans for the buildings that have been recently demoed downtown that I kind of want to connect to another question. So the question is kind of about some plans for those buildings, but can you talk a little bit about the historic building grant that was recently discussed, and just share any details and the amount about that opportunity?
Yeah, Dawn, you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. So I want to tell everyone that there is a plan and a vision for downtown redevelopment. We are working with a developer, and it is in the early stages, and they're it's dependent on a lot of factors. So we want to make sure we're not speaking out of turn or sharing information that may not come to pass. So financially, it's definitely going to be an issue to redevelop, and we're looking to gather as many resources as we can. What I can share is that the building that came down on the corner of Washington and Broad, the plan as it is right now is for some kind of housing or mixed use development. So we are looking at that and working with the developer to get as many resources as possible to the table to help make that happen.
And we're looking at market rate housing. I think that's important to note as well. We're
Yes,
looking at, because one of the gaps we see within the city is for a lot of young professionals who don't want to buy a home. There's really not a market for them in Elyria right now of the type of lifestyle living that they want. So our hope is to get some of those sort of, small family unit sort of apartments downtown where folks can eat, shop, live all in the downtown space, kind of create that dynamic that from other, that other cities have to offer.
As for the part B of that question, the Downtown Historic Rehabilitation Grant Program, one caveat that everybody should know is that it has not been passed by City Council yet. We're optimistic it will be passed as it passed in the Community Development Committee meeting. But as of now, it is not an official program. But we hope that to be changed very soon. The way it's designed is to be a $50,000 reimbursable grant that plays a part in the redevelopment of a historic rehabilitation project.
I also saw a question around the sewer work and the water work that's going on. So this is one of the thorns in my side with just water in general, because right before we took office, the rates had been voted to be increased over 2 years because of an EPA unfunded mandate that said we had to redo all our water infrastructure, a lot of our water infrastructure in a 20-year period. And if we didn't, there would be legal penalties and fines that the city would have to pay for not doing it. And so that put a huge burden on families when they see their bills increased. So that's one frustration. Like, man, we see people struggling to pay their water bills and the bill is increasing because of this unfunded mandate. But then on the flip side of that, we see the consequences of having the old infrastructure where people's houses are being, backed up, and because of these old infrastructure we have. So we know that there's a real problem that needs to be fixed. So our hope, we've been talking with the folks, the new administration in DC, around this infrastructure bill. And when this infrastructure bill comes out, that there's components in it that include redoing water lines and grants available. There used to be grants available in the 80s to pay for a lot of this water work and this underground sewer work. And so we hope that through this infrastructure bill that there'll be more grant money so that we don't have to put that burden on residents to pay for this aged infrastructure that they've inherited. However, there are ways that residents can pay for it outside of just rates and waiting on grants. And that's something that Councilman Osborne has been working on, getting his community organized and working with engineering to try to get a special assessment so that if those residents want to take ownership themselves, they can assess it on their property value and get the work done themselves. And it increases their property value as well. So if you're interested in learning more about that and being a part of that, email me and we can connect you with your council person, and we can see if your community is interested in doing something similar to what Councilman Osborne is doing in the 4th Ward. With that being said, I just want to make sure I mention this one more time around this Ely Life project. And again, the focus of this is to really, increase and support leisure activities within the city of Elyria, to support the arts and community service and be that source of inspiration, increase inspiration in the city, increase our fitness opportunities within the city, and increase and support and create platforms for entertainment. So if you're interested in being involved in any of this, or you got a talent, you got a band you want to perform, you're a fitness instructor, you're an artist and you want to do a mural or do some sort of art exhibit, or you're a restaurant that wants to be a part of this. We also have a biking program that we're doing this year. I think Andrea Repko's on the line as well. We're going to be doing biking with the mayor again this year, as well as doing bike classes. Andrea's going to be hosting. So we're going to be doing a lot more biking around the city. That's a habit I hope we carry over from last year. We're going to be doing the bike drive again. So if you got a bike in the garage, get ready to dust it off and bring it up to the Elyria Bike Education Center. And we'll get those bikes refurbished and out to folks who need it. And yeah, it's just, last year was a difficult year for so many of us. I just got a message, which probably many of you are getting a call from Elyria City Schools, that they have canceled the food pantry for tomorrow. The food drive that was going to be at Ely Stadium, that has been canceled due to weather. So don't drive out to Ely Stadium tomorrow for that drive. And I know Kareem Hunt was a part of that as well. So we'll reschedule that and make sure that that information gets back out. But again, go ahead, Mr. Martinez, and then I'm gonna close this out. Oh, it is 7. Let me close this out, Mr. Martinez, then I'll come to you. See, because I gotta make sure we stop the recording and let folks go. But again, thank you all. 2020 was a challenging year, but we got through it. There's a lot of things we need to recover from because of it. But our motto has always been, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. To try to always emphasize the we. I cannot do this alone. You cannot do this alone. It's going to take us collectively, putting aside differences of personality, differences of political positions, differences of race and gender, and working together for the betterment of this city. And I know that sounds easy and it sounds cliche, but it's not easy work, because we all come to this work with background and biases that we have to confront on a daily basis to make sure we keep that cohesion as a community, that we're humble enough to admit when we make mistakes, we're courageous enough to step out and speak up when we see something is wrong, and that we're also courageous enough to serve one another and help one another and compassionate enough. So I just want to encourage you all to continue to think, pray on how you want to be involved in the city, and continue to dream big. I've had to challenge myself over this past year to not shrink my thinking, and because sometimes we can get so bogged down in the day-to-day that we start thinking small. So my mindset is, why not? If the city of Elyria residents want an indoor aquatic center, a health and wellness center that they can take their families to and be proud of, why not Elyria? Why not Amazon? Why not Revitalize? That's my motto going into this year, and I hope you'll join me on it. Again, you can email me at mayor@cityofelyria.org, or you can call up here to the office, and I just want to make sure we're always available to you all for any questions, comments, concerns you have, and hopefully we'll do this here in the near future. Until then, take care, God bless, and I'll see you next time.